Hey friends, welcome back to more Reddit stories about entitled people, Karens, and everything in between. Hope you're all doing awesome today. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't yet, and as usual, let's get into today's stories. Stand in the middle of a race course? Don't mind if I do. This just happened now while I, 42 female, was at my son's cross-country meet. He's in high school. We live in a semi-rural part of the country, and the cross-country courses tend to be trails through heavily wooded areas here. So when any part of the course goes through an open field, things are very clearly marked with orange neon cones, flags, and banners. At today's meet, the part of the course that went through a field was only marked on one side, and it wasn't clear which path the runners would be coming from. Lots of spectators had gathered along the marked section, and a race official came by to ask us to please stand back several yards because the runners would be coming through where we were standing. No problem. We all respectfully moved back to where he had indicated. A minute later, a man with a cane and two women, all of whom looked like they were in their late 70s, came over, and the man pushed his way through the spectators with his cane to get to the front. Not content with that, the three of them stood right in the area where the race official had asked us to keep clear. The race official immediately comes over and asks them to move back. They took maybe half a step. The race official asked them to move more, but they turned their backs and began chatting, totally ignoring him. Eventually, the race official gave up and went back to his post by the trailhead. It was clear from these people's conversation that they were all grandparents of runners from one of the high schools from about an hour away, so they were obviously there to watch the race. 5 minutes later, the front runners come tearing out of the woods along the marked area, headed straight for the trio. The spectators all start cheering and hollering, and the grandparents finally look up from their conversation. The two women realized what was about to happen and stepped back, but the man simply took a small step backwards. This was enough space for the first few runners to pass him and the trail markers, so he turns and smiles smugly at the race official. At that point, the main pack comes out of the woods. We're talking like 15 or 20 teenage boys running as a herd, all trying to gain on one another. The guy realizes that he can't get out of the way fast enough, and that they aren't going to slow down for him. You know, because it's a race, and he just barely manages to scramble out of the way, shouting "damn millennials" after them. At this point, every spectator in earshot, myself included, starts laughing, and his two lady friends had to escort him back to the picnic table to nurse his bruised ego. I don't know what was stupidest, the fact that these people thought it was okay to stand on a cross-country course during a race, like the rules didn't apply to them. The fact that they seemed to think the runners would just go around them or slow down to accommodate them. The fact that this man thought that children his grandson's age were millennials. Or the fact that these three people drove over an hour to not see their grandkids run because of entitlement and lack of common sense. Father nearly cancels Make-A-Wish trip. When I was 17, I went into cardiac arrest driving home from school. Miraculously, my car just drifted off the road and grazed a tree, leaving my then limp body mostly free from harm. I was told that had I still been conscious, I may have ended up being injured far worse. Anyways, the person behind me stopped their car and called an ambulance, which in another incredible stroke of luck happened to be parked on the street I crashed on. There was a sheriff on the scene who I got to talk to after this all went down, and I was up and moving around again. He told me that because of my long hair, I'm a guy. The ambulance assumed it was a drug overdose and Narcaned me twice. After that didn't work, they finally used the defibrillators and brought me back on their second try. First time they brought me back, they lost me. This part of the story is getting too long, but basically I had an SICD put in, and to this day I haven't had any problems with my heart. Soon after my accident, my dad contacted Make-A-Wish, and they were happy to grant me a wish. As a 17-year-old who was freshly out of a car, that was my first idea for a wish. And I don't remember the exact reasoning, but they asked me to pick something else. My next idea was to travel. But seeing as how when this happened we were fresh out of the pandemic, Make-A-Wish had a huge backlog of travel wishes and they weren't doing international travel at the time. Eventually I came to the idea of going to meet a girl I had been talking to on the internet. And from the point I decided to go see her, our relationship became a lot more serious. Some of the adults in my life were suspicious, and people loved to poke fun at my online long-distance relationship. But in this day and age with Snapchat and FaceTime, it's pretty easy to confirm that someone is who they say they are. Anyways, I talked about it with my wish granters, though I just referred to my now girlfriend as a friend because I was a nervous teenager. And they love the idea of me using my wish to not meet someone famous, but to meet a friend. We didn't officially start dating until we met, but I'll refer to her as my girlfriend. Since there was such a long list of kids who wished for travel, and since I was pretty much as healthy as you can get being a Make-A-Wish kid, I ended up having to wait several months before I got to go. The lead-up was agonizing, and my girlfriend and I were so excited to meet. This is where my dad started with his bullcrap. Make-A-Wish had offered to set up some things for us to do together while I was visiting. For context, she lives in California, which is a long way away from my home state of Maine, and has a lot more interesting stuff to do. And my dad thought this was a great idea. Me, on the other hand, all I wanted was to meet my girlfriend and spend as much time as I could with her. I didn't need to go to Disney or Universal, and neither did she. We were just looking forward to each other. My dad and stepmom were both going to be coming along for the trip, and they decided that it would be better if we planned as much stuff to do as possible, even if we didn't end up doing it. Mostly so that they, my parents, would have something to do while I was with my girlfriend. The way I saw it, they were trying to squeeze every penny they could out of Make-A-Wish. This to me felt wrong. I know that lots of Make-A-Wish kids survive, but I knew that I was a mostly healthy individual who didn't necessarily need this opportunity, as other kids might, so I just wanted to go see my girlfriend and not spend any of Make-A-Wish's money that I didn't have to. My dad was furious when I told him this. I can't remember the full conversation, lots of yelling. I have memory problems from the whole dying thing, and also my mind blocked it out because I hate yelling. And long story short, he threatened to cancel my Make-A-Wish trip if I didn't plan the trip around making sure that my dad was entertained the whole time. He and my stepmom were staying in a nice hotel the whole trip. I was supposed to as well, I think, but I ended up staying at my girlfriend's house. And I'm pretty sure they had some pocket money from Make-A-Wish to do some stuff while they were there, but that wasn't enough for him. In the end, not wanting to lose out on this opportunity, I let my dad have control of the trip, and he had me tell them a bunch of stuff I wanted to do while I was there. There was a whole itinerary of different activities for them, and even then, after Make-A-Wish said that Disney was not available as an option currently, they ended up going to Disney with the money out of their own pockets. More evidence that they didn't need Make-A-Wish's money. My stepmom ended up not feeling well while we were there and didn't want to go anywhere. So my dad, after continuously telling him that we did not want to go to any of the things he planned, shows up to my girlfriend's house unannounced early in the morning to try to get us to go with him to SeaWorld. We did not go. We know how they treat those animals, and he told us he had a good time with the dolphins. A few months after my trip, I graduated high school, quit my job, and moved across the country to be with my girlfriend, and I haven't talked to my dad since I left. If you think I'm overreacting, he had a long history of verbal and psychological abuse, as well as neglect for all his children, not just me. I was the third and final kid of his to grow up, and I decided I don't need him in my life anymore. You know, trying to insist that your kid tells Make-A-Wish to do things that they're not even interested in is already bad enough, but to threaten to cancel the trip if he doesn't do so is even worse. You would think that they would just be happy to be able to go in the first place. You know, considering it's already an all-expenses-paid trip. Let that sink in for a second that this dad is basically trying to benefit off his own kid's near-death experience. Father of the year right here. Am I the a-hole for not letting the police and neighbors use my driveway? Going to begin with saying that legally I am in the clear. It's my property and I can do as I wish with it. I bought a piece of land and had a house built on it recently. There was a gravel road, now paved, that has become my driveway. I guess before I lived there, the locals used it to get around faster. I've been told that if they can't use my driveway, it makes the travel 15 minutes longer. This started when I moved in. Stuff like the yard and surrounding area was not finished, but it was complete enough to move in. My driveway is long and can be exited or entered from two sides. With how the house is built, for them to use my driveway as a shortcut, a lot of traffic would pass right by my house in cars every day. This isn't just people driving. People on bikes and walkers want to use it too. I simply do not want the whole town driving through my driveway every day. I realized it was a problem when I moved in and could constantly hear cars driving through all hours of the night, or voices of people talking and people walking right past the cars. I understood that this property was vacant for a while, so I put up signs saying that this is private property. You can clearly see a house there, and I'm sure they saw it being built. No change. So I put up gates that only me and my wife have access to. It doesn't deter the walkers, but I have plans for that. This caused a big fuss. I've had numerous people knock on my door asking why I put a gate up, saying they will be late for work or school. I had a guy say I made him late to an interview. I just tell everyone that this is private property and that this house didn't just appear here. You saw it built. You saw the signs if this was a route you use daily. Apparently the police use this as a speed trap area, and I've had police ask me to open the gates. I tell them no. My wife normally is the type to let people use the driveway, but this wasn't normal. Imagine the whole town using it like a shortcut. There was so much traffic constantly. The first complaint I got before the gates were up was when I parked my car on the driveway and not on the part in front of my house, because it was blocking the traffic. I responded, "The traffic of my property?" I've had cops tell me I am obstructing their work. My direct neighbors understand, but town people are just upset that their shortcut is gone. They are pretty upset about the house being here altogether. People would park their cars all over the driveway in my property during sport events. High school football is important around here. I'm not trying to be an evil neighbor. Am I the a-hole? Edit, for those wondering, yes, I've talked to lawyers and this is my property. I initially didn't want the two outlets because to me it looks odd. I only have one entrance to my driveway paved and the other one is gravel. I was just going to leave it, but now I will just remove the outlet entirely. My land is still under construction and there will be a fence going completely around my property. Well, to put it simply, no, OP is not the a-hole. Sure, maybe the property was vacant for a while and people just got used to using it as a public area. But since that's not the case anymore, people are just gonna have to get over it. Still pretty funny though that someone would actually complain that OP is blocking through traffic with their own car, on their own property. Engineer demands special desk, gets fired instead. This happened at work last year. So I work for a big tech company as a building maintenance tech. I do repairs, handle contractors, move office furniture, that kind of thing. But most of my coworkers are tech types with engineering degrees. Some of them are nice, down-to-earth kind of people, but many of them let their importance go to their heads. This guy, though, takes the cake. So we had a very, very nice desk set aside in an empty office. It was meant to be moved to the office of one of our bigwigs. But she was out of town for a few months, so we were storing it until we had her input on what she wanted removed to make room for it. This low-level new engineer decided to set up shop in the spare room we were keeping the desk in. He was told that as long as his supervisor okayed it, he could stay, but that we would be coming to get the desk any day and to not get attached. Well, the day comes to move the desk and this guy lost his shit. He was pissed, yelling that he deserved that desk. He was an engineer. How dare we? My team just kind of shrugged and took the desk anyway. So he turned his rage onto the poor front desk guy for some reason. Just went off. Well, front desk guy doesn't take crap from anyone and got the guy's supervisor and HR involved, which opened up an investigation into Mr. Big Shot Engineer. And guess what they found? He lied on his resume. He was in no way qualified for his position. I guess a fresh set of eyes saw some kind of red flag the hiring manager hadn't. So yeah, he was promptly fired. Amazing that he almost got away with it and blew it over a dumb desk. Anyway, that's gonna be it for today. Thank you for watching, I appreciate it. If you enjoyed, be sure to drop a like and hit that subscribe button as well for more Reddit stories. So I'm out of here, take care and I'll see you next time.